flying through it. We might get through chapter 30 as well. That's kind of how I'm feeling about it. Okay? Comments, questions, concerns about that? Good to go. Last scene from his father. The vision that he had with the ladder last week that we talked about. All of these are good things, right? So we see somehow, whichever interpretation you want to give, that Jacob is growing up.
And he was immediately attracted to Rachel.
And he was immediately attracted to his cousin. Okay, good. Because she was beautiful. Yeah, she was. Okay. No, that's it. Okay. So 13 and 14. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, "Surely you are bone of my flesh." And he stayed with him a month. I mean, most of the time we don't really like house guests for longer than 2 days. That's the traditional kind of like, the third day is when you're kind of starting to be done with that, right? Yeah. Here's the flap of the tent. Show yourself out, right? Anything weird about this?
I wouldn't think so, because they, at that time, the families are apart, they are so far apart, you just don't think, well, I'm just gonna walk down the street and visit a little bit.
Because they were like,
it can be years.
Well,
before they see anybody.
well, and we'll say that Laban never met. He never saw Rebecca again after she left as a late teenager, right? So to see a grown son, Matthew, is a really big deal, right? This is going to be probably the only time it ever happens in his life. Okay? Something culturally that's important for us to know, and we can remember this in Luke chapter 15 when we talk about the prodigal son. Okay? Men, we've got 3 of you in here. No, 4. When was the last time you ran?
On purpose?
On purpose.
It's been a while.
Usually, grown men don't run. You just don't. Unless you're like a runner. And that's like a whole separate thing. Okay? But like, most of the time, when you see a grown man run, that's like not only odd, but it's also showing you the importance of something. Right? And so we say to ourselves, oh, he was excited, he ran. It's way more than that. He is understanding the importance of this event, and he is running to his nephew. Okay? Same thing, and we'll get there when we get to Luke 15. The fact that the father runs to meet his son is a really, really big deal. Okay? Good. And so in verse 12, right, Rachel runs to go tell her father. That wasn't as big of a deal for her to run because she's younger. Okay? So Laban running to go meet Jacob is a bigger deal. But then, like, he says a month. A month? Whoa. Okay. 15 through 20. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing?" It's a little presumptuous. "Tell me, what should your wages be?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel's was beautiful in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her.
So what's the significance of 7?
Well, 7 is complete, right? So when we see 7, it's considered the perfect number, the complete number. 3, the godly number. 4, the earthly number. Together make 7. That is a numerological way to read this passage. Some people would say that's a thing, and other people would say it's not a thing. Okay? Good question. What else in here is important?
In Leah's eyes were weak, but it's not because she's nearsighted or whatever, but she's just not attention grabbing, right? Not the beautiful as Rachel.
Right. So we can say that this is literal, and Leah couldn't see very well, and Rachel her eyes were just like the most beautiful you've ever seen. Or we can take this as a metaphor and say that Moses, the author of Genesis, is just being really kind to Leah and saying that actually she was not very pretty at all. And Rachel was very good in form and appearance. So whichever way you want to take that, it's fine. Okay. Another problem?
Well, Leah is the elder.
Thank you for saying elder and not older. I really appreciate that.
So I'm going
Correct.
to observe that the time went quickly,
Yeah.
and yet usually a time of anticipation goes
Way slower.
slowly.
Mhm.
So that's confusing.
Yeah, it's not something that we would expect from the narrative. Good. Yes, so Leah was older.
Oriental tradition, or Eastern tradition.
We're gonna learn that at the end of the chapter. Okay.
Best is to be married first, and then
Right.
go down the line.
So we're missing a major theme of Genesis here in this paragraph. Okay? The major theme is verse 18. Jacob loved Rachel. In our modern ears, we don't have a problem with that because we say, well, you love who you love, right? Let's think back to Genesis and all of the different stories that we've had. What's the problem there?
Seems like the eldest gets into trouble.
The eldest is not the favored, okay? We've seen that time and time again in Genesis. Another way to interpret that is that Jacob is playing favorites, which is the same thing that his parents did to him and his brother. Okay? So we have the two, and we have one quote unquote good one, and one quote unquote not so attractive one. Same thing with Esau and Jacob in the eyes of Isaac and Rebekah. Okay? So apparently, Jacob has to serve Laban for 7 years in order to receive a wife. I just think the first verse, like Laban assumes that he's just going to work for him, which is a little weird. Okay? And Jacob's like, okay. Probably not that would not have been my answer.
I wouldn't expect somebody to work for me just because we're related. I wouldn't expect them to work for me for 7 years.
But he had the perfect plan
For him,
for him.
yeah, selfish plan,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mhm. I think that you're on the right track by saying that, what can we say about Laban so far? Is he our favorite person?
No,
Why not?
he's using them.
He's using him. B,
Well, selfish.
selfish, prideful, whichever adjective
And
you
we
want to
learn
use.
that he has a different plan.
And we learn later that he has a separate plan, okay? Now let's think back to the entirety of the chapter. Okay? Laban's chilling out in his tent, apparently, while his daughters are shepherding the sheep, waiting for men to open a well so that they can drink and then come back home. What does it say about Laban?
He's lazy.
Lazy may be too strong of a word, but I think you're on the right track, right? Like he's just kind of there. Having people serve him, having people do things for him. That selfish, prideful track is in there somewhere. And it seems really counterintuitive from what we know about Rebecca, or does that kind of jive with Rebecca? As a brother and sister, remember?
She willingly left that family.
She loved the family, however, Rebecca always favored Jacob. She got Jacob to deceive her husband, right? So, are they kind of two peas in a pod?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
The apple, I always mess up this phrase, the apple doesn't fall far. So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, what is this that you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me? Laban said, it is not so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years. Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years.
Wow, Laban got a lot out of that.
Laban got a lot out of that.
And what was wrong with Jacob? Was he drunk that he couldn't tell?
That is the traditional interpretation. Is that he got so drunk at his wedding that he couldn't tell that his wife was not the wife he worked for. Because literally, I've never heard another explanation. How else do you not know? Were you taking shrooms? Were you high on acid? Like what is the explanation for your mind not to be able to recognize the one that you love? This makes no sense. So I've also heard that she had the veil and she wouldn't take it off until after they had sex.
Oh.
The other person in Genesis that got drunk and got in trouble for it?
Yes. Where he took his clothes off.
Noah in chapter 9. Good. Okay.
It just shows everything, it just keeps repeating.
A little more.
The story keeps so like the way that I've explained Genesis before is that with chapter 3, right? You've got the little sin of just eating a fruit. Okay? But like it's actually a really big deal. And then, you get Cain murdering Abel, and then you get Abraham giving Sarah away, and then you just and it just keeps on just and in my opinion, we're way over here, and the circle is as tall as the church, right? Because everywhere you see sin now, right? Okay. Good. So the history is repeating itself. Good. What else? There's a major verb in here that I really want at least one person to pick up on. I'm assuming it's going to be Jane, but it's okay if it's not. you want me to give you a hint? What? Someone want a hint? Yes? It is in verse 25. Deceived. Why is deceived such a big verb? Because
Bring it back to the beginning.
it's what Jacob's name means. Remember? As a noun, it means heal. As a verb, it means to deceive. Okay? So Jacob is the one, I believe, is the one that says this in verse 25. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah, and Jacob said to Laban, what is this that you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why have you Jacobed me? Jacob has been out-Jacobed. The deceiver
It's a
has,
family thing.
it's a family, he has had his just desserts,
Yeah,
right?
some Muppets.
Can't have your cake and eat it too. So, like, the title that I have for, like, my Bible study, right, is Jacob has been out-Jacobed.
So now he has Leah and Rachel.
The actual text, it makes it seem like Leah 1 week, Rachel 1 week, 7 more years. Now, is Jacob really going to care? Maybe? Maybe not. He's got his wife now. But like, that's a set. If someone deceived me for 7 years of my life, like, I get mad when someone deceives me out of my day.
And you have to work another 7 years.
And you have to work and you're like, yeah. It's probably not gonna be like super great relationship, right?
It's kind of strange though, because so he gets offended and he grabs his wife and leaves. Where's he gonna go? He's cut off from his family because of Esau back there. He's scared to go back.
Yeah.
He's got a good deal here with Laban. I mean, it
Ish.
appeared to be fairly wealthy.
Yep.
And he's got servants, he's got 2 wives now, he's got 2 servants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe 7 years isn't so bad.
Not so.
His desire for Rachel was strong.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he could pack up and go, but where?
Yep. Good.
I have a note that says, true love waits.
Oh, isn't that
Isn't that sweet?
that is so modern. I just love that. Aw. Anything else? Let's not forget the female servants, right? Lest we forget about Zilpah and Bilhah. Okay? I always, in my mind, considered them to be not pretty based off of their names. Right? But who knows? Doesn't say. That doesn't really roll off the tongue, right? Bilhah. Anyway. Okay. Doesn't it sound like that? Good. All right. In fact, let me see if I have it in my notes. In fact, it's funny that you mentioned that, because Leah in Hebrew means cow.
Oh, wow. Name your kid cow.
Isn't that lovely?
But then I think, cow.
It's a deceiver.
I always loved my cows that I had at the farm. And they were not ugly. They were beautiful animals. They had lovely, amazing eyes.
Those big brown eyes.
Yes.
Be very-
And my mom especially loved my mother's pancakes.
I bet.
That's a really popular name today.
Right, cow. Right.
It is.
Well, oh, Leia, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, and you know, it went up because of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Did you know that? In the 80s,
Oh.
that was more popular. Like 5 to 10 years before I was born.
Mhm.
That's when it was really
Oh,
popular
okay.
to name people.
But
Yeah.
then the #1 boy's name for year after year has been Jacob.
Yes.
So, you know, name
Yeah.
your kid Deceiver. Wow.
Or heel.
Or Heel.
Just love
Star
that.
Wars was 10 years before you were born.
I think Star Wars, if I remember correctly, came out in 78-ish.
Yeah.
I was born in 82. Sorry. So,
Yeah, I remember going to see that.
in the theater.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so in case you're interested, Rachel means you. Like EWE. Female sheep, you. Okay? So cow, sheep, but like, in my opinion, you is like nicer.
So I love you can have.
Okay, see, I wasn't going to be the one that said that.
My notes say that it's appropriate in a herdsman's family, those
Yeah,
names.
of course, yeah, because that's what you're dealing with all the time, right?
Yeah.
So that's, of course, you know, one of my biggest pet peeves as a pastor at seminary was when my friend, and this is recorded, I kids watching, some of my friends would name their kids these most ridiculous names because they're pastors, right? And so they read the Bible and they're like, oh, well, here's this really long Hebrew name that no one can pronounce, let's name our kid that. And so then they have to make up a nickname for people to pronounce it, or like the one that really got me was Charis. 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 Okay? So if you see that, you're like, oh, don't know how to pronounce that, one. B, don't know where that comes from. Okay? It is Greek for grace, which is really pretty. But no one knows that.
Is that a boy or a girl?
A girl, usually a girl, right? And so, like, in my mind, I'm just like, why? Why would you do that to your poor kid?
I would just name.
Just name them Grace.
Yeah.
Because we gotta get back to the original language. Well, stop. You know what I mean? So, sometimes it's based off of your profession, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's finish this chapter here. Okay, so when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, so not only is she not loved, she's hated. Strong word. He opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son and called his name Reuben, for she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. It just breaks your heart. She conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. So she called his name Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name shall be called Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she ceased bearing.
Well, apparently every son never changed her circumstance, so why did she?
Why would you think that that's... Like, isn't that just the saddest thing you've ever heard?
Yeah, it's sad.
It's really, really sad.
Yeah.
And like, again, to kind of put her in Esau's camp, right? Where Esau got tricked out of his blessing, right? Did Leah ever do anything wrong?
No.
No! The girl's just living her life.
As a
Her, as a cow. She's just living her life. Her dad made her marry this man that she probably knows doesn't love her. I don't want to say tricked into, but
You know,
forced
he's
into.
calling her Rachel on her wedding night.
Right. Okay, and this poor girl, who's not pretty, maybe has had a rough go of things, right? And now she's just bearing child after son to gain the affection of her husband.
And what's that say about Jacob?
What does that say about
He
Jacob?
hates her.
He
you know,
hates her
but-
and uses her for
Uses
his
her.
rights.
Yeah.
Not great.
No.
This is not what we want our patriarchs to look like.
But God gifted Leah.
And God gifted Leah so much because he saw that she was hated. This is like one of the saddest parts of the whole book to me.
Yeah.
Okay? Alright, so let's go over the sons. Okay? Reuben.
Is this the beginning of the 12 tribes?
The beginning of the 12 tribes, right here. Yeah, very good. Okay? So Reuben means to see a son. Ru is see, Ben is son. Okay? Simeon means herd. Hearb. Or to hear. And one of the ways that you can connect that in Hebrew, if you've ever heard this before, is the great Shema. From Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. It's a really big deal, okay? So the Shema, Simeon, it has the same consonants in it, okay? Levi means to become attached to. And that's important when we get into the 12 tribes, their role as the priests of God, becoming attached to God, okay? And Judah, which may be the one that we recognize the most, means he will be praised, or God will be praised, depending on how you interpret that. Okay? So, when we think about these 4 sons, because that's all we got in this chapter, I would rather not move on to the next chapter. We've heard of Reuben before because he's the eldest. We've heard of Simeon and Levi before. We've heard of Levi because of the job with the priests in the Old Testament, okay? Judah, we've heard before. Why have we heard of Judah before?
Isn't that the line that Jesus descended from?
Jesus came from the line of Judah, okay? So how many tribes are there going to be that we're going to get to at the end of the next chapter? There's 12, okay? Jesus came from the 4th. That's weird, okay? So far in Genesis, the second one has been elevated over the first, so we would assume it's going to be Simeon, okay? We're going to find out that Simeon and Levi do a really big sin, and so that's going to take them out of the running. We're going to learn that Reuben does a really big sin, takes him out of the running. The next step is Judah, okay? That's the traditional explanation for why Christ comes from Judah. In reading this chapter, I came up with another theory that I haven't checked yet, but I'm going to tell you, okay? You can judge for that being right or not. When you look at the meanings of the names of the sons, we have see, hear, attach, and praise. What is that, Sesame Street? Which one of these is not like the other one? Which one of these things is just not the same? Right? Which one's different? Judah is different because it's attached to God. Just in the name, already, his name is different than the other 3. which I think is really interesting and telling. Okay? Again, I haven't cross-checked that with anybody else, but that was just my reading of it yesterday.
Interesting, it's Leah that named all her sons. Wouldn't you think Jacob would name his sons?
Sometimes, I'm trying to think about the next chapter if, I don't think Jacob names any of them. We'll have to see. That's a good thing to remember for next week. That's right, because with John, Zechariah had to name him. He had to write it out, and that's when he was able to speak. Yeah. Good. Anything else?
Judah, that would become the name of the northern kingdom.
Excellent,
And then
excellent, excellent.
Israel would be the
Excellent.
southern.
Excellent. You have it reversed.
Oh, Israel
Yep.
is north?
Yep. So, if another way for you to recognize Judah, okay, is to realize that in the second half of the Old Testament, after 2 Kings with Solomon, after Solomon dies, his sons cannot decide who should reign over Israel. And so the big kingdom that David set up with the help of God is now fractured into different parts, okay? And the general line that you can make for that is right above the Dead Sea. Again, give or take 20 miles, something like that. And so this becomes the northern kingdom. And this becomes the southern kingdom. Jerusalem is right about here. So Jerusalem is in the southern kingdom. It remains true to God for longer than the northern kingdom. And the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom end up getting names, okay? The southern kingdom is mainly made up of the tribe of Judah, okay? The northern kingdom gets various different names. Sometimes, I want to say Simeon, but I feel like that's wrong. Most of the time it's Manasseh and Ephraim. Those are going to be the sons of Joseph that we're going to learn about in the second to last chapter of Genesis. Okay? So a lot of times when we read Isaiah or Jeremiah or one of the minor prophets, they'll talk about Ephraim. And whenever they just mention that, they're just talking about the northern kingdom in general. So the northern kingdom was really, really bad. They did a lot of idol worships. They went back to worshiping other gods. And so eventually, God has Assyria come and take over the northern kingdom and bring them all back to Assyria, and the northern kingdom kind of dies out. Okay? And then eventually it becomes too strong of a pull for Judah to worship other gods. And so later on, God has Babylon come and take Judah out. And that's when Jerusalem gets sacked and the temple gets destroyed. And it's a really, really bad thing. Okay? That's Ezekiel when God's presence leaves the temple. It's like the saddest part of the entire Old Testament. And then you get to Ezra and Nehemiah, where they're trying to rebuild Jerusalem after they come back from exile. Okay? So that's good. I'm glad you picked up that Judah is popular or it comes up a lot in the Bible in reference to the southern kingdom. Okay? Good.
The northern kingdom never came back. Those that were carried off?
So it's interesting, okay? Because in the New Testament we get, that's a very good question, by the way. In the New Testament, we get this group of people that we don't really know where they come from, okay? And I know you've heard it before, the Samaritans, right? And so in the New Testament, instead of being divided in two, the New Testament period is kind of divided into three sections, where we have Galilee up here, we have Judah down here, and we have Samaria in the middle. And that's why Jesus and the other Pharisees and the Sadducees are always concerned about traveling from Nazareth down to Jerusalem, because they have to go through the Samaritan territory, which is really, really bad, because they did not like each other, okay? It's possible that they were the remnant from the northern kingdom that came back from exile and started their own way of worship in the middle here at Mount Carmel, and just kind of rejected Jerusalem because it was destroyed, which is why the Galileans and the Judeans didn't get along with them, because they thought that you could only worship at Jerusalem.
Wasn't it a Samaritan woman, though, that Jesus talked to at the well?
Good.
And she knew a lot about the Jewish
Correct.
tradition and
Correct.
background.
Yeah.
It must have been related somehow.
Or they just interacted enough
Yeah.
that they
Because
knew about each other's customs, right?
She understood,
Right.
yeah.
And that's not the one I was expecting you to say. I was expecting you to say the Good Samaritan,
Samaritan, yeah.
right, from Luke. I think that's chapter 16, 14, 16. Okay? Good. That was really good math work today. I like that. Okay? Good. All right, so next week we will cover chapter 30. Chapter 30 is one of those chapters that, like, you read it and you're like, I don't even think I know what's going on. So, it's so outside of our realm of how things are supposed to happen that it'll be interesting to talk about that. So that's something for you to look forward to for next week. Okay. And then 31, yeah, the 30s just kind of get weird. Jacob runs away, he meets Esau again, he has to wrestle. We've got Dinah and Esau's descendants, and then all of a sudden we're into Joseph, and then we're all down in Egypt, and it's a whole other thing. So, okay? So let's say the Lord's Prayer, and we'll come back this week. Okay? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thanks for braving the snow, son.